For past couple of days I'm having this Carpinus betulus here in my workshop, and I'm working on it here and there. And while the tree is standing here, I had a couple of thoughts. This tree is Bonsai Yamadori collected from the wild, most probably around year 2013. And you can see the pictures from the previous sessions when I was working on it. And this tree is very interesting because it forces me to think about the differences between the naturalistic and between traditional bonsai styling, and how certain shape of a tree is forcing me to do some kind of necessary decisions. So let's just talk about this, how the shape of this tree as it was collected from the wild is influencing its future bonsai design and styling, and how I can, let's say, try to change it, or what steps I can make to make it different than maybe traditional tree. And then we can talk a little bit about healing of wounds and this shiny metallic tape. As I collected this tree, it's quite impressive, white nebari as you can see, and it's basically two trunks. You can see it on the older footage there, where without leaves it's better visible, but this is main trunk, and there is a secondary, very elegant trunk going up here and up here. So this is basically like a brother trunk, but very, very narrow. They are almost grown together here at this point. Most probably, in case I pull this more or pull this tiny trunk at this point, it will maybe merge together or grow together. I don't want to do that because I think it's okay if they are separated, and I really don't want to have this kind of strange window here. So maybe I will be forced to do something to pull this part of trunk away from the main trunk. So of course this tree as a collected tree has certain challenges, and but also some very strong features. And this is the movement of main trunk and secondary trunk. And this is bringing me to topic of this discussion, that this trunk, it has very strong movement from this camera view to the right and back here. This is what I grown. So there is a cut here which was done when the tree was collected. You can see it on old pictures and old footage. And this, which is above my hand, was grown. So this is the stuff which was grown in the last decade. And of course the branches, the trunk was basically nothing, only this part of a sub-trunk, and most probably those two branches at the bottom. We will come back to those branches and what kind of challenges are they creating for me here. In traditional design, this would be almost ideal. I usually get the suggestion to remove the secondary trunk and work with the main trunk as a traditional S-curve or S-shaped trunk, and create, let's say, more or less traditional shape of the branches there, with exits on outside of the curves like this one, or maybe this one, where the trunk changes its direction. There is a branch which is exiting in another direction and creates some kind of shape of the pad and separation with negative spaces. Obviously, I never wanted to style this tree in this kind of manner, and you can see it, for example, here, where the branch is going up and everything is going up. It's not really pad shape. Where it starts to be interesting, and now it's more obvious, is the bottom part. And we are coming back to those two branches, which are now separated from this area with this negative space. And those two branches are too wide. If you look, this is most probably back side. It's still looking okay, but this is probably the best front, and those two branches are creating some kind of back branches. But if you look on this tree from that side, it's very wide here, and it's going in this kind of shape here, and it starts to be very wide at the bottom. I decided this season to do something about that, and I already removed some of the branches. For example, here, also here it was very long, so I wanted to compact it and come back closer to the main trunk. And I think it's still not enough. I think still I can go even more. You can tell me what would you do in case you are looking on it through your screens. Maybe you have different idea how would you approach this styling. And also I'm curious what you think about those two branches at the bottom. I had several ideas about this. One idea was to get rid of both. So what it would create is much smaller crown, which will end somewhere here, and everything which is below my hands will not be here. It will be more compact tree. Of course, I would then still need to push a little bit more here and remove some of this growth. So to create more roundish crown, not to end with very wide base. I'm not absolutely sure to remove both. I was maybe thinking about removing just one, maybe this one, to empty all this space here. Also remove this branch, which is here, or move it more to this side or to another side here. I don't want to move it too much. It's still quite flexible. So this most probably can go or be shortened significantly. And I'm not sure about those two branches. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to shorten still some of those, and I will look at it, and then maybe I'm curious what you are going to say in the comment section about this bottom. What are your suggestions? Then we will talk about the wounds which are here. So I was thinking about reducing this branch, so we start with this. If it's enough, maybe not. But I wanted to say that with this kind of S-shaped trunk, if you are not putting really a lot of effort to basically regrow the shape of the tree, it's very hard to achieve some kind of illusion of natural looking tree, and it's pushing me more in direction of, let's say, conservative traditional design. What can we do here? Maybe I was thinking about manipulating this branch more down here like this. Maybe it will look a little bit better. We can try to play with this, and I can try to pull this branch down and see how it will look from that side. Now, this trick with the plastic I saw first time with Jonas, and it seems to be really clever thing. The Slovak team was playing on ice hockey championship and lost to Sweden, as far as I know. So congratulations to viewers in Sweden. Unfortunately, we ended there. So I think I can go a few more twists. normally you wouldn't want to have branch so low, almost touching the soil level. But I somehow don't find it disturbing, and I like it this way. So, is it better or not? Well, I shorten it, and now if it's more down, it looks maybe a little bit better. So keep the right one going more down, and the left one, which you see exiting from on the right side, on the bottom, from the trunk here. This one, keep it like it is, and go up and here, and this one goes down. So they are in a different levels. Maybe pull this part down here, like this. What do you think? I'm going to keep it like it is. I'm curious what you have to say about those two bottom branches. And that's it from this little styling. And I wanted to tell you something about these wounds and maybe do a little bit of work on those wounds. Big wounds which were there. This is main cut, which was done when the trunk was shortened. And I tried to cover it with a cut paste last year. This one was covered only partly, and I wanted to accelerate the healing. It seems like there's not a lot of healing going on, so I'm going to recut the callus and repeat the procedure, but I'm going to modify my approach slightly, and I did it already on a few trees. That's why I have metallic tape here, and you see some of the wounds were done already with this metallic tape, and I was studying this method. I know that most probably one of the proponents or one of the first users of that method was Mr. Kobayashi in Japan, and people who were studying in his garden are using it extensively. When I was studying it, I saw that Michael Hagedorn is most probably using it. It's nothing new. I just wanted to know what's the logic behind using this metallic tape. I'm not sure how much of, let's say, scientific backing is there for using that. I want to try it, especially on some bigger wounds, but I tried it on several mid-sized wounds around 2-3 centimeters, so around 1 inch, slightly bigger than 1 inch. Of course, you don't see the result immediately, but maybe there will be some visible difference after one growing season. Because I tell you, after using the normal sealant, you can see there is not much of healing going on. Of course, I know it's a very slow process, and especially if we are talking about hornbeams, which are notoriously bad at healing wounds, especially large wounds, I cannot expect too much. I renewed the callus, you can see the live tissue here, and I will cover it with the paste and then apply a piece of tape. I'm not sure I'm doing it correctly, but as far as I understand, this is how it should be applied, that you are covering the wound with the cut paste and then cover the cut paste layer with metallic tape, self-adhesive or aluminum foil, which will reflect part of the light and reduce the heat on the wound. I have seen it being done many years ago, but I never understood the mechanics. For many years I wasn't really trying to cover the wounds. Now I'm doing different type of experiments and trying to find the best optimal approach for that. So that's why this wound is covered. Piece of metallic tape. Ideally, I think, is to cut the tape to shape of the wound. So what I wanted to ask you, if you are using this approach with the tape, what kind of tape you are using? What are your results with this? If you are using it for many years, we know. My understanding is that the tape is in some way keeping more of the periphery of the wound. It's protecting it from overheating, which makes sense that tape is reflecting some of the energy. Maybe it's keeping the sealant more wet. That's why also the cambium is staying fresh for a long period of time and is creating more cells under these conditions. I don't know. I covered this last year. So this is the wound which was covered with the paste last year. I think it healed a little bit. The wood under this is dry, so I just renewed the callus and I applied a fresh cut paste, my favorite one from the white box, and again I'm going to cover it with this metallic tape. Obviously there is many different metallic tapes, many different chemistries. I know, I bought this one and I think it will fulfill its reflective properties. And this is the wound I done some time ago. I don't know if it's important or not. I'm just curious to hear what you have to say about that. The main problem are not those kind of small wounds. The main problem was the wound which is here. So this part is completely dry. So I covered also this part, but there is not so much healing. So I removed the cut paste 1 week ago and let it dry. And maybe I'm going also to renew the callus here and in the periphery and cover it with the paste. The biggest challenge is this big wound, which was completely covered with cut paste. And when I was checking it in the spring, the wound below that was completely wet. When Walter was here 1 month ago, I told him about my approach to experiments with healing the wounds, and I told him about this problem, that this is basically supporting his position, that with the covering the wound with the paste, if the wound is really big, it's not really helpful because it's creating very wet environment. And you can see the example here. This part was uncovered some 2 months ago. It's already dry, but this was covered still few minutes ago with this chunk of cut paste, and it's completely wet and there is not a lot of healing. That's why I started to think about trying to different approach with the metallic tape, and that's why I'm interested to hear your opinions. I'm not going to finish work on this wound right now on camera. Let me know in comment section what do you think. That's it from today session in my workshop. Now you can see the tree as I'm leaving it now with this branch bent down. I'm curious to hear your ideas about this branch here, and let me know what are your experiences with Kunio Kobayashi method and metallic tape. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.